Welcome to the Get Out Swim podcast, where we discuss all aspects of competitive swimming. I'm Seamus T. Quinn, and I'm a former Division I swimmer and current college and age group swim coach. Today, I'm joined by another NESCAC Conference student athlete, and more specifically, one of the greatest swimmers to ever develop at Bates College, Nathan Barry. Nathan is a 3-time NESCAC Individual Champion, 10-time NCAA All-American, 8-time school record holder, 2-time Bates Male Athlete of the Year, along with NESCAC and Region 1 Student Athlete of the Year. No slouch in the classroom, Nathan was also a 4-year Dean's List student at Bates, graduating with a 3.86 GPA and a degree in psychology and minor in digital and computational studies. He received the Bates Athletics Senior Scholar Award and the Richard V. Wagner Prize in Psychology his senior year. While all these accolades are great, I think Nathan and I would both agree that these are merely a reflection of the tremendous work dedicated to being the best version of yourself on a daily basis. One thing that really stood out to me during our conversation is how much Nathan embraced his leadership role of being a team captain for Bates his senior season. As you will learn, Nathan went above and beyond in researching and taking notes on what qualities and standards certain leaders employ to effectively empower their peers. Nathan's selfless leadership and commitment to his craft is something that is special and something that I hope others can apply in their own lives. This is the longest conversation recorded thus far, as Nathan and I talked for nearly 2 hours. We unpacked so much, including Nathan's journey into swimming, his recruitment process to ultimately land at Bates, what he learned about himself during the COVID years, his mindset leading up to competition, and overall aspects of Bates College and the swim program that led him to thrive throughout his 4 years there. Not to mention, he unpacks one amazing training trip get out swim. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Nathan Barry. Thanks,
hello.
Thanks, Nate, for being here.
Hello.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm super excited to just have you on the podcast, and I recently got to speak with one of your coaches at Bates, Vanessa Williamson, and she recommended having you on, and she couldn't have spoke more highly of you. And so, I'm just super excited to learn more about your swimming background and journey into the sport, and then ultimately your time at Bates and sort of what you're doing post swim life. So this is just really exciting, and I hope that all the viewers and the listeners will understand just how special this is to do this. So definitely.
Yeah, I checked out your episode with Caroline, and I saw your blog too from a few years ago. You got some good stuff, so I'm really excited to do this too. Excited to talk to you and happy to be here. I don't know if anyone else is doing something like this for D3 and NESCAC, so this is exciting.
Very cool. Well, thank you. And that blog, I gotta keep going on that blog. I had a whole WordPress account that I started, and I would kind of write about other sports aside from swimming. But yeah, it's cool that you brought that up, because I should really restart some of that posting. But anyways, all right. So I'll begin with sort of the introductory question of just your sort of beginning into the sport of swimming. Just I want to know where are you from? And how did you get involved in the sport of swimming?
So from Maine, my whole life lived in Maine. So it wasn't a big travel to Bates. Where I started was basically just my brother, my older brother. He's 13 years older than me. And so he swam in high school and college. He swam at Bates. So when he was at college, I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And I went to all his meets. I never missed a meet. And his senior year, at the senior meet, Coach Peter Casares, who was on his second year of coaching, brought 8-year-old me out onto the bulkhead and gave me, I actually have it here, one second, the first, and I believe only, Bates Swim and Dive Super Fan Award. Because I never missed him. I was at every one. I wasn't driving, so against my will. But I was there. I was having a good time, and I was at every one. And so I was, getting fired up as a kid. Fun to cheer for your brother, right? And one time as a kid, I remember I dumped out a bottle of water onto our living room carpet and did like a backstroke start off the couch and just started swimming on the carpet. And my parents were like, we got to get him in the pool, stop doing this on the couch. And I was terrible at swim lessons. Like the candy cane pool where you have to like go down, touch your chin, touch your nose, touch your forehead. I wouldn't go past the chin. Chin was fine. Could not put my face in the water. So I became a backstroker. So that's kind of how it all started. Basically just my older brother and getting me excited about the sport. And funny story actually about the Super Fan Award. So I was a captain my senior year this last spring, and we have the talk with like the new captains next year. And, here's the duties, here's the responsibilities, here's all the tips and tricks we learned, like the help. And at the end of all that, I had them raise their right hand and swear on the Super Fan Award. They put their left hand and did their oath over the Super Fan Award. So it's got some history, and so just kind of a funny like full circle story there. But that's how I got.
Very cool. I like that. Yeah, that Super Fan Award sort of being an omen to kind of carry on the tradition of leadership at Bates. I think that's really cool. And just the fact that Cassara has handed out a Super Fan Award to you, probably whether you think of it or not, maybe just planting that seed, pretty early on there.
He was recruiting me for 12 years. Yeah.
For 12 years. But that's great. And obviously, that worked out well for the both of you. And that's really cool. When it came to, committing yourself to swimming, like at that point, or I guess just growing up, like, were you interested in other sports? Like, were there any other organized sports that really, that you tried or that interested you, or was it solely swimming?
I tried a bunch of them. I did baseball, basketball, soccer, like all the classics. I did wrestling and karate for a bit. But I kind of sucked at them. I just wasn't any good. I like the team sports and dribbling, and I have no feet coordination, so I couldn't do soccer at all. It was just sort of a slow, like I did swimming competitively since I was 9. And then it was just a slow, like cutting out of everything else. And then it really became swimming full time when I was like 16. Before then I did track in high school in the spring. And then when I was 16, it became, okay, I'm not doing track anymore. I'm doing swimming year round.
And then, so would you say that around 16, that age, like junior year of high school, I'm assuming, or somewhere around there, that was sort of like the flip of the switch, sort of say, like where that was like when you really decided to commit to swimming? Or did you find yourself kind of having the internal drive to like commit to swimming earlier than that? Like at what point was that commitment like kind of full-fledged into, I want to be a collegiate swimmer? Like I want to go at this. I kind
of always knew I wanted to swim in college. So it wasn't so much of like a flip the switch thing for me. I started to get like, decent at like 13. Before 13, I was just garbage. But like right around that time where you start like beating the girls that are your same age, that's the motivator, right? All the girls who've just been kicking me in practice, finally.
Yep.
But yeah, I just kind of always knew I wanted to swim in college because it's one of those sports that like, I really like it because it's dependent on what I do. It's like a direct input output exchange. Yeah. And so it's like, if I put more work into it, if I spend the 22 hours of my day outside swimming, thinking about it, trying to perfect it, putting in all the work in practice, devoting energy to it, I'm going to get better. And if I don't do that, then like I'm not. And it's not so much like, maybe you pass the ball and someone misses it. And so someone could deke a relay, I guess, but like, I kind of like that aspect of it. And I also like the performance aspect of it. Like I've always been, I did a little bit of music theater as a kid, actually. So like I got good at like spending all of your time preparing for like one moment, and you have to like be great in that moment, or else, no one notices.
Right.
So that kind of, you're an MMA guy, right? Like kind of interested?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Very, very interested.
So that is kind of the same deal for me. Obviously a lot less intense. But it's like, the MMA fighters, they train all the time. Hard for like 2 minutes in, however long it takes. And just don't get knocked out. And if you get knocked out, then that's it. No one cares about the training you did. No one cares about how it went. All they care about, the only thing that matters is those, 20 seconds in the pool. So I kind of like that, the thrill of like, this is it. Everything's preparing for this moment. It's like the mental game. Yeah. Something I fell in love with.
That's awesome. I know. I think that's well put, and that's a good point. I think, swimming is one of those sports where, what you put in is what you're going to get out of it. And I think the swimmers that have the ability to sort of just, I would say rise when the pressure is at its most, like yourself at NESCAC championships or at, NCAAs, like, I think that's the mark of someone who has really sort of I wouldn't say, I can't speak for everyone when I say mastered, but sort of to a degree, like mastered the mental side of things, because, when the pressure is at its most and when you have in the back of your mind, oh my God, I have a full season's worth. I have a full year's worth of swimming in a pool almost every single day, going to weight room sessions, going to dry lands, all of our team events. And it's all coming down to, these 3 individual events that I have and these, 3 or so relays that I have. Like, if you frame it in that way, it's a lot of pressure. And to a degree it should be, right? Like it this is why we swim. That we swim for these, obviously connections that we make in the grind, and a plethora of reasons, but we also swim for the performative results to go out and kind of shine under those lights and perform for ourselves, perform for our team. So I think it's a really cool thing. And I would kind of correlate it to MMA. I had a friend who, after his senior year, was really interested in MMA, and he ended up just moving to Florida and training full-time in jiu-jitsu, and he still does now. And he tells me just how, he was a sprinter, and I would say that it was maybe a good transition for him. But he just said how much he's fallen in love with it, because, there's so many parallels, he says, between kind of like the I don't know, just like the swimming mindset, and just like that being a nice segue. So I do think there are parallels there. And I think that was just like a really good way to put kind of why swimming just means a lot to you. So that's very cool. And I wanted to ask, like, I know you said your brother was kind of it seems like just a big role model for you growing up, someone that you looked up to, someone that you went and you cheered for. But I wanted to ask, like, was there anyone else growing up? It could be a coach or someone that was just a role model to you, or a figure that you kind of looked up to in the sport or in life just growing up. And if so, like, what qualities about them did you just like resonate with most?
Yeah, all sorts of them. My brother, it was just sort of my life role model. He was like my, younger dad almost. Like, it wasn't like an equal relationship really, because he's 13 years older than me. So he was always the person that I was looking up to, trying to become. So I was just sort of an all around role model. And in swimming, you have all the Olympians, the Nathan Adrian, back in the day, Caleb Dressel, those guys. Phelps obviously, but Dressel and Adrian are more sprinter guys. Brian Murphy, the people who are like really showing the good side of swimming, being good ambassadors for their sport, not just fast, but doing the interviews and shaking people's hands at the end of every race, and showing how to be a good teammate and being uplifting and all that sort of stuff, and being super fast.
Yeah.
So that was sort of maybe if you do all that stuff, you get to be fast. Like maybe they're correlated. Maybe it's not just like one thing or the other. And my second club coach, he joined when I was about 13. He was very big in mindset, philosophy. What are you thinking about behind the blocks? How do you control your mind? All this sort of stuff. He was very into like the mind muscle connection, the mind and body being one unit. So that was sort of just a bunch of ideas and things that I look up to kind of converging and propelling me forward. No,
that's very cool. I think having, many people to be able to kind of look up to is important for someone growing up. Just having, sort of that role model or a figure where you can really just look to when you need some sort of inspiration or whatever it is. I think that's really important. And speaking of like sort of the mind body connection kind of philosophy or just mindset that you were able to kind of adopt from that coach, like, I'm curious, like what was sort of your approach when it came to just stepping behind that blocks for your race, like for, a NESCAC final or an NCAA final? Like, how did you sort of channel those nerves, or how did you get into that kind of like right headspace?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it kind of changed over the years. I think it was actually kind of COVID was kind of a marking point, because I had a year of a break. Before COVID, I was always very superstitious. It's like I have to, the day that I went fast, I drank from this red cup in the morning. I wore these goggles. I did all this stuff. So I have to recreate the exact environment, or else I'm toast. Like my entire headspace is gone. And then after I had like a year to kind of mature and get rid of all the stuff that didn't matter, it became a lot more, I just have to get ready for the race. There's only two things I need to do. One is warm up my muscles, and two is execute. So everything I do is in preparation for those two things. And if it doesn't serve either one, I don't need to do it. Or like it's not necessary. So I became a lot more flexible in the days leading up to the meet. I'm like, well, I got to get my warm up. I got to get my warm down. I got to eat right, but got to get enough sleep, right? But besides that, there wasn't too much that I had to do. Behind the blocks, I'm never visualizing behind the blocks. Because I have visualized every race, maybe 100 times before the blocks. So like that's not the point to do it. Should have already done it. So behind the blocks, I'm just trying to get relaxed and think about the first thing I'm doing. So just coming off the blocks, getting in very tight streamline, like going through all like my muscle activations that are going to happen in the first second.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And then I just go on cruise control. I usually like to do like the deep breaths. I don't know, like it's not hyperventilating, but it's like breathing through your nose really big, really filling your lungs up, and doing that for like 10, 20 seconds to make sure they're saturated with air. And I always would like to do like a one of these, like chest out, shoulders back, just like sitting like this, the power pose thing for like 10 seconds beforehand. Just kind of, it gets more confidence, right? Or at least it makes me feel like I have more confidence. And it gets you relaxed.
Yeah. Do you listen to music as well behind the blocks, or no music behind the blocks?
Not usually behind the blocks. I do listen to music on the bus. I get fired up on the bus ride over, like heavy metal, stuff like that. I get all excited on the bus ride over. But that was one of those things that I was like listening to music one time, like a few years ago. I was listening to music and had the good song stuck in my head. I'm like, yes, this is the song I need stuck in my head. And then they played like the national anthem, and then I had the national anthem stuck in my head, and I was like, man, now I'm gonna swim slow. And so I managed to like get rid of that. Like, okay, I don't need, it's something that I don't need. It doesn't affect my muscles getting warmed up or my race execution. So, I don't need it. So it was one more thing to kind of get rid of.
Very cool. Yeah. So for you, it was really just about kind of getting in the right headspace, meaning once you're behind the blocks, you've gone through your visualization. So I would say you're a big visualizer. Would you say that you're someone who really, takes the time to visualize races, and you would recommend kind of visualizing to any swimmers who are, preparing for their races ahead of time?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just, for me, it's not just like, laying in bed with your eyes closed, going through the race. Like, it is that. But for me, it's like visualizing your race while you're doing other things. So like while I'm walking to class, I'm thinking about keeping my head straight and like swaying my shoulders, staying in line, rotating forward. I'm like almost like I'm in the pool. Like I'm feeling the feelings outside of the pool. I'd stand in a mirror and just swim my sprint stroke. And I'd learn things that way because I could see, oh, I'm not recovering fast enough. Like I'm doing almost a catch-up stroke in my sprint, which is not good. I gotta be way out here and crank.
Right.
So yes, visualizing like the race plan, just closing your eyes, doing it in bed or whatever. Absolutely. And the technique and the feelings and putting yourself in the place physically when you're not actually in that place is like another way of visualizing that I started to learn how to implement.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think, whenever I think of visualization, exactly what you started off by saying, I think of just laying in bed, eyes closed, like in a nice, relaxing, calming spot, and then doing your visualization, which, works and is certainly a way to do it. Something that I would definitely do, like before going to bed, and just kind of visualize, that race, maybe the days leading up to it or the day before. But that's really cool. I think that's a good piece of insight for swimmers to just kind of think about, is kind of just visualizing just during everyday activities, like every day, sort of just life things. It's just like you can, kind of just like think about little things, like you said. It's kind of like keeping your head in line, rotating through your shoulders, and focusing on, a good recovery, and kind of mimicking your stroke in front of the mirror. That's all really cool. I think that's that's something that swimmers can take away and maybe try and implement it into their own routine. That's really cool.
I got to give credit to Brett Hawk on that one. I didn't come up with that. I learned it from Brett Hawk, the
Oh,
guy
nice.
who did Cielo. Yeah, I heard him say that he used to do that for like 30 minutes at a time. And I was like, that's crazy, but I'll do it for like 5. So got to give credit there. That wasn't my idea.
For sure. Shout out to Brett. Shout out to Brett on that one. That's a great piece of insight. That's awesome. So, so I want to kind of go back a little bit, but just talk me through sort of your recruiting process. Like what was important for you when looking at a school and a swim program, and ultimately what led you to kind of go the Division III route when it came to the athletics and choose Bates, somewhere that's kind of close to your hometown. You're from Augusta. Like, what ultimately led you to decide there? Because I know, even speaking with your coach, Vanessa Williamson, she said that, hey, Barry, by the time he was a senior in high school, he was going a 20.2 in his 50 free at YNATS. Like, he was someone who was under 50 in the 100 back, just a really all around sort of like high ceiling potential swimmer, and someone that was really fast. So she even mentioned, schools like NC State going out of their way to try and like recruit you. So just what led you to ultimately go with Bates?
So I kind of always knew I wanted D3. D1 was really, wasn't really in the cards for me.
Hmm.
The reason was because I knew that I had a very sort of unique style of training. I'm very fast twitch, and so if I do a bunch of yards, I don't get faster. I just get broken down. I can't do that technique right. I can't execute, and I can't be explosive. And so I knew this was a conversation that I had with Peter, actually, because I did swim camp at Bates for like a bunch of years. And so it was when I was younger, he was talking about this with me. He was like, and keep in mind, this is back in the day, 10 years ago or something. So D1's definitely changed since then. But he was like, the difference between D3 and D1 is the main difference is D3 can't give athletic scholarships. And so the D1 schools, what they tend to do is, go on paper, who are the fastest recruits, try and get as many of them as they can, train the heck out of them. And if about half of them get faster and half of them don't, that's fine because they're getting another freshman class next year who's going to be just as fast.
Right.
And to me, I was like, I'm probably going to be one of those that falls off because I don't think I'm going to be able to handle like a D1 like yards-based program. I think I'm just gonna be one of those people who kind of falls off and gets broken down. Mm. But D3, they don't offer athletic scholarships, and so they have to put all of their attention to making each individual as good as they can. Like it's a little bit scrappier, right? It's a little bit like every single person. I have to make the most of it.
Right.
So that was, and I didn't really want to be like owned by swimming. Like I really cared about it, but I wanted to put in the effort that I was putting in on my terms, not on someone else's terms. And I didn't want it to take over my life because I knew I was probably only going to do it for 4 years. And so if I spent 4 years at a D1 program, I know in my head that I would just get obsessed with it and I wouldn't really focus on anything else. And so I felt that D3 was like the way to kind of, athletics and academics, like focus on other things besides just swimming so that when you finish swimming, you still have something.
Right.
So that was sort of my mentality. And I know it's kind of like antiquated. It's not really, it's very simplified, very watered down. It's not actually the way it works, but that was my reasoning. Because I know you went D1, you went UMass Amherst, right?
I did. Yep.
So were you always thinking because I haven't talked to many D1 athletes. So were you like always you wanted to do D1, or was it just like across divisions, didn't really matter?
Yeah, D1 was the only division I was thinking of. I think I had just a sort of a closed-minded approach to, finding the right fit for me. And when it came to swimming in college, I didn't have anyone I'm the oldest in my family, so this was kind of our first go through of like finding I have two younger siblings and they both also swim, and so it was our first go through of like trying to go through this process, the recruiting process and everything. But I was just a very serious swimmer growing up and someone who always wanted to try and like go for the best possible option when it came to a college swim program. And so for me that was just Division I, and so that led me to end up at a mid-major school like UMass Amherst. And, I have no regrets with it, but certainly looking back, I do kind of have that thought of like, oh, what if I had expanded just my sort of way of thinking to consider Division III options? Because certainly looking, at my siblings who have just absolutely loved the Division III experience and being in the NESCAC, because they both swim at Connecticut College. It's just like, so it's definitely something that I just wish I had the wherewithal to kind of like open my mind a little bit. But I think it was, Division I experience too, if you're set to it and committed to it, is also, absolutely just can be a great experience for you. But so that was kind of my journey to.
And there's something to be said too about like, if you go D1, there's a much higher probability that you're going to be surrounded with people who really care about swimming. Like you're not going to get a team of people who don't care. So like if you're really committed to swimming, you're going to find other people who are like you, and you don't have to worry about being like the weirdo who like cares about swimming so much is like, you're D3, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
so there's something to be said for that. Like, I mean, did you have a supportive team? Like a really like tight knit, like good team?
Yeah, we did. I would say I would say had some struggles within our team maybe my freshman year, but by the time I was a sophomore, yeah, just the guys on those teams, on that team, because we had although our men's and women's team were very close, we had a separate men's and women's program. So a separate coaching staff for our men's team, separate coaching staff for our women's team. We did not practice together at the time, and so we were all very close. Had a great team culture going on by the time I was a sophomore. And yeah, some of my absolute best friends, I have to this day are from that team. So for sure. Yeah. And like you said, just, when you get to that level of maybe committing to D1 or D3, I mean, you're just surrounded by like-minded athletes. And so that's unique because coming from a smaller club team in a smaller hometown, certainly I'm sure our hometowns are similar, like in where we grew up. I'm from it's kind of a smaller town in New York here. And like, yeah, you kind of are like a big fish in a small pond, and then you go over and, maybe there's that to an extent, but at the same time, like you're now surrounded by a lot more like-minded individuals. And yeah, that ultimately helps you kind of get to that next level, right? That's why college swimming is just such a beautiful thing. But yeah. So I would say, D1, D1 and D3, they're both good routes, but to be able to have, I just think the important thing that we can kind of bring this back to here is just like having the open-mindedness to kind of, see, all your options, don't be very close-minded on just D1 or just D3. Cause like in your case, if you had just been like, I want to go D1, I'm hearing like, the kind of that conversation that you had with I think it was Peter and just like, just kind of, it seemed like a really good self-awareness to know this is how I train. This is what I'm kind of looking for. But for a lot of people, I don't think they have that. And exactly what you mentioned, I think is the case for not a lot, but definitely many swimmers, like being able, just like thinking that going to a big, maybe Power 5 Division I conference or team is the way to go. And then, like you said, it's not the end of the world to many of these coaches if you do end up kind of falling off the wagon or burning out or whatever it is, because they're looking to kind of breed the next generation of the best swimmers and divers that they can. And so that stuff happens. And so I think that, having that self-awareness and sort of like, even outsourcing some coaches who might know a little bit more and just have the wisdom to kind of guide you in the right direction is really important. And so I think that's really cool. That's what led you to end up kind of going that D3 route, ending up at Bates. Obviously one of the better Division III programs in the country, not to mention. So that's really cool.
Best team in the country. Yeah. Peter always says it. Best team in the country.
Best team in the country. Well, there you go. So that's great. I really like that, Nate. So that's great. And so I wanted to also ask, what was sort of that transition like from being an age group and our high school swimmer? Did you, I didn't get to touch on this, but did you swim in high school? Was high school swimming sort of a big kind of culture in the state of Maine where you were, or was it mostly focused on, year-round club swimming for you?
Yeah, it was mostly club. Okay. Almost all of the high school swimmers that were competitive did club as well. And since the club was a longer season and the championships were later, most people were focused mostly on club.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a great combo because I feel like when you combine club and high school, you get college. Because club, you get the intense like focus on it and the people who really care about it. But it's kind of a mishmash of people. Like you're swimming against an 8-year-old because they don't have enough people that are your age to swim it. So you're like, flying through. And then when you're 8, you're getting crushed by like 20-year-olds. Right. So,
right.
And then high school was a lot more of like the team focus, the peers just having fun, like having a good time. Like the social aspect of it. And like, honestly, I did high school mostly for the social aspect of it because it was fun.
Yeah.
And that was a really good transition to college where you get a really tight-knit group of peers who are your age, and they're fast, and they really care about swimming. So it was like, culture-wise, it was a great training. I had a great time. Training-wise, it was just, my first year was rough because it was a lot of yards. I mean, not that Bates does, like, they don't do a lot of yards compared to like other college programs, but just compared to what I was doing like 3,000, 3,500 a day in club. It was very much like technique focused, very much like sprint heavy, lots of rest, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, college, I got more broken down. I got more tired. I got more aerobically in shape. But I didn't care about that much because I was like, I'm only doing a 50 and 100. Why do I need this? And then I didn't really get it until like my junior year, where I started to actually, build that aerobic base. My body got used to the training that we were doing. And it's like, well, you need the aerobic base because you're doing 50s and 100s, but you're doing like 11 of them in 4 days. And so you need to be able to recover and to build good habits in warm down and everything like that. So it was definitely a rough transition my first year. I mean, if anyone has seen like my freshman year NESCAC times, I added in like everything. 100 back, I dropped a little bit, but only in finals. Like prelims, I added a bunch of time. I slipped on the wedge though. That wasn't my fault. Slipped on the wedge. Standing by that. But yeah, I was just like all in my head. Right. Because I was like, I've never done this training before. I don't feel like I've hit my taper. I don't think I'm going to go fast. All these thoughts that are just running through my head. I wasn't confident because I hadn't seen it work before. I didn't have any evidence that it would work for me. And so that was kind of my downfall freshman year. And then it just got better and better and better each year that I kept doing it.
Yeah. How do you feel like you kind of recalibrated or just responded after sort of having the disappointing NESCACs? Like what were, I don't know, some of the ways for you to kind of just get back into the mode of like, you know what, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna not fix this. I'm gonna figure this out. Like I'm gonna improve. I'm gonna get better. Did that take sort of conversations with the coaches or just, kind of the self-awareness on your own or the self-reflection on your own side to kind of like realize, okay, maybe I could have done this better, or I need to work on this a little bit more? Like, what was that process like?
It was a little bit of both. One thing that kind of immediately helped me bounce back was, so the end of my freshman year was when COVID started, like in March. And so we were like 3 days away from leaving for NCAAs, and they canceled NCAAs. But I had been training that whole time since NESCACs for NCAAs. And so, so had all the other people that were going to the meet. And so what we did instead was we had a meet at Tarbell, like a time trial at the Bates pool.
Nice.
Put our tech suits on, shaved down, because we did all the training anyway. We're ready to swim. We just didn't have a pool. So we're just going to do it here. And I dropped half a second, 0.6 in my 50.
Wow.
Just in that time. And so I was like, oh, okay. The entire season that just wasn't quite the right time. I just didn't have the confidence because, the last 3 days of taper, coach wasn't coaching. It was just do what you want to do. So I like tapered myself for like, I did kind of what I wanted to do those 3 days. And I was like, oh, wow, it goes way better when I feel like I'm in control and when I feel like what I'm doing is the right thing, even if it's, even if that doesn't make a difference. That was like a big jumping off point. It's like, okay, so maybe it was a good thing. Maybe more yards is good. Maybe more aerobic is good.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was just sort of a gradual, like I said, just getting better every year, getting more adjusted.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something to be said about it taking, like anything, like it takes time to kind of develop the trust, right? Like I feel like that's a key word in the sense where whether that's with the coaches, just the program, right? Like that. I mean, I found it in my own experience at UMass. I only asked, kind of the follow up there because I experienced something very similar at the end of my freshman year. I felt like it was a great year of training and just definitely some good times posted throughout the season, and it just didn't work out at conferences. I added in every single one of my times, only made it back for one final, and I just felt like it was a huge I'd never been more disappointed after me. I was just like, dang, like that was such a letdown. All that work, all that preparation, all the extra yardage that I wasn't used to at my club program, very similar. And like, for what? Like, really?
So much extra pain for no reward. Yeah.
Right. And it's all that pain. And it's like, yeah, how are you going to, but then it's like, how are you going to respond? How are you going to deal with it? I know for me, I had to get back to swimming almost immediately. Like it was like, okay, maybe a 2-week break because our coaches were pretty just like, keen on us taking a break from the pool after that conference meet. But then it was like right back in. And I remember that summer, I fully committed to like a season of long course swimming for one more season. I think originally I told myself I was going to stop after high school, but I was like, no, I have to prove to myself that like I can compete this summer and like I can perform. And it really helped, and it really, really helped. And from then on, I started to sort of put the pieces together moving forward. But yeah, my point being, there's something to be said about it taking time. Like I think it's sometimes that freshman year transition is just, figuring things out, right? Like you're a young sort of 17, 18-year-old coming off of, a certain club program. And now you have to transition to, a college program. And there's going to be oftentimes just more of everything. It's going to be more intense, and that's to be expected. But, you're going to go through moments where it's like kind of questioning, is this right for me? This is not how I did it in club, like having sort of those doubts or questions. But I think ultimately, just over time, you start to build the trust and it does kind of get better and you do see those improvements. So yeah.
Good for you, man. I mean, that mental leap is really impressive to me. I'm not sure that this, was the best thing that I could have been doing. I'm lacking confidence. So let me double down and do long course. Like, let me, I'm going to do more of what I thought might not have been the best. Like, that's a big leap right there. Just that decision, that trust that I'm not just going to go back to what I thought I should have done beforehand. I'm going to double down. I know I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my career. So let me get good at it instead of trying to fix it.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I had to call that out because that was an impressive mental leap for me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah. And I think, that was, sort of a decision I made because I think if you are sort of self-aware and you do take the time to self-reflect, like, internally, like, yeah, I'm sure you knew after the NESCAC meet, like I'm better than this. Like but you just know, like there are times where, like I'm better than this. This is just not my best self. And a lot of swimmers know that. But for me, that answer was get back in the water, go right now, go back in the water and work this out and get back on the blocks in a meet environment, whether it's short course, long course, it doesn't matter, and prove to yourself that, this is in you, your potential is there. So yeah, that was sort of my mindset. Just figuring that stuff out. But yeah, I wanted to also ask, just like within the transition to, to Bates, that freshman year, I guess swimming aside, like, for the listeners out there, for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, Bates College is definitely a very rigorous academic school. And so my question is just, what were some of the challenges that you encountered just having to balance both, the academics and athletics, especially with like the rigor at Bates?
The lack of structure was probably the hardest part. Because in high school, you do practice in the morning, school for however long, you have your segmented blocks of same class every day, and then you get home and you do swim practice, and then you do your homework, and then you go to bed. But in college, it was a lot more difficult to make the schedule for myself because classes were more spread out. You had more free time. living with your friends and you're staying up till 2. Swimming, I think, definitely helped, actually, rather than made it harder, because swimming gave me a like, I have to finish this assignment quickly because I have swim practice. I have to get up early in the morning for morning practice. I have to finish this by 9. It gave me some of the structure that I think was probably the hardest thing. As soon as anyone who's looking at colleges, everyone is going to tell you the hardest thing is time management. Everyone says that. Time management. Yes. Yeah. Structure, I think, is really like at the core of it. Like you can manage your time all you want, but if you don't have a system, if you don't have a structure, a predictable, reliable structure, you just have no shot. So swimming really kind of provided that for me. So it wasn't too much of an issue, but it was kind of a shock at the beginning. Like, oh, there's more work than I thought. Like it built up because I didn't do it in time, because I didn't have a set. The deadlines were all longer. I had more free time, and so everything pushed off, and then it exploded. And so that was kind of the biggest like shock to the system.
Right. It's just, the sort of the lack of structure, or just dealing with kind of finding a routine, and swimming sort of helps. Like you said, that really helps that. I know that it just provides that, okay, sort of sense of urgency. Like, this is my block of swimming. This is kind of like the break in the day, if you will. And then, okay, I need to maximize sleep later tonight. I need to make sure I'm eating. So you have like all these segments sort of broken out, sort of revolving around the swimming, but then also within that, it's like sort of the importance of, okay, my classes and studying and everything that goes in between with the academic side of things too. So that makes total sense. I meant to ask this before. I wanted to kind of circle back, but I just wanted to ask, like, what was your experience like sort of navigating, COVID, like the challenges that it brought, having freshman year sort of kiboshed, for kind of the back half of that year, after March, and just like, what did you use that time to just sort of like work on, the improvement of your swimming in like specific areas in your swimming, or just life in general? I know you said you sort of like, when it came to race preparation, you kind of figured out ways to just kind of cut out maybe the BS or sort of the extra stuff, and just focus on really like your preparation and the actual execution. So like what did that, like, upon reflection, like what did that time really, what did you get out of that time, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question, and I am going to answer it. But first, I want to turn it back on you, because for me, I felt like I was always the luckiest class, because I had almost a full freshman year. Sophomore year got knocked out. Junior year was mostly normal, and I got a full senior year. The class that I felt most like, I don't know, like sorry for, I don't know, that's not really the word, but like, oh man, that sucks, was the class whose senior year got taken away. That was your class, right? Your senior year. And so it's interesting to me, it would be interesting to me to know, how did you find things to move you forward and keep working towards, because you didn't have, I'm just going to have, next year, I'm going to have another year of swimming, so I'm just going to keep working on that. Like, I don't know if that was the time you started the blog, or if you were looking at coaching jobs then, but like, what was the thing that was keeping you moving forward?
Okay. I like this question, and I'm very appreciative that you flipped it on me and you're asking. I would say it was hard to kind of backtrack even more. My junior year, I had been suffering from kind of a conundrum of a knee injury, and so basically it must have been sometime in that fall, or could have been even leading up to that fall. I just suffered a really weird non-impact, like kind of like unbeknownst knee injury And so my junior year, I basically was just trying to figure out what it was, going to our athletic trainers, trying to, work around, but still feeling like I wasn't in enough pain, sort of say, to like continue to just like stop swimming. I wanted to keep proving to myself that I could. And for the most part, it was working out until just the pain became too much. And it just started to, just really impact not only my physical health, like in terms of the pain, but just my mental health as well. So leading into COVID, I was in a weird spot, mentally, and the break actually provided me the break that I needed to be able to step away from swimming, kind of that forced, stop and just like clear my own head, and try and really solve this, leading into that summer. And so long story short, I just wasn't getting the answer I was looking for when it came to what was wrong with my knee. I was getting sign of just either misdiagnosis or, just people who ultimately professionals who just didn't know what they were looking at. It was a really weird, injury because everything seemed normal. Everything on the MRIs, x-rays, no matter what, seemed normal, but there was something that I knew. Again, I very self-aware, so I knew there was something wrong. And so what happened was our senior year, the pools were shut down on our UMass campus. So regardless, we had no opportunity to have a season going into the fall. And so what I did is that I turned my attention towards, really just kind of starting a blog, getting into some sort of creative space that would take my mind away from just like sitting in your thoughts and just kind of feeling maybe sorry for what's going on around you. And so that's when I started writing, started getting really into my just like sport journalism major my senior year. Although it was online, I really started enjoying my classes. And then I started coaching. So there was a local club team, USA club team called the Amherst Tritons. I knew they had been looking for assistants. And so I threw my name in the hat, through one of my teammates who was connected to their team, started coaching. And I just loved it. I was like, oh, this feels so natural to me. Just, giving all of my kind of knowledge and experience back to these age groupers, especially in a time like this. And just, the human connection. It's all I would say, like, I don't know, just qualities about me that I have. I just really resonate with, coaching being a really good fit. So that's basically how I used that time. Now we ended up having a senior year, of swimming available to us. By the time basically the end of our fall semester rolled around, our coach got on a Zoom call with us and told us, hey, we are going to have the opportunity to swim starting January 1st, start of the second semester. We can bring you guys back to campus. We're going to open up the pools and we're going to have about a 2-month season, but that's what we have. And so, if you want to get in the water now and start training, do so, because we're going to have one dual meet against Boston University, and then we're going to have our conference championships, and that's it. And everyone was like, whoa, like, oh God, like this is crazy. Some people deciding, what to do, if they were ready for this, and whatnot. And so, I ended up having a phone call with my coach, just a long talk where we ultimately decided for me, just not to commit to it because I hadn't been swimming. I still wasn't in the right headspace. And I honestly just still didn't know what was wrong with my knee. It was actually only getting worse. And I just couldn't find the answers I was looking for. And at that point, I was just I had closed the door on swimming. So it was kind of like the unfortunate end, to, the swimming career. And in hindsight, I wish maybe I approached it a little differently, but yeah, regardless, it was hard. And, I was, really at least grateful that we were able to have somewhat of our senior year. And I know that like a close teammates of mine who were in that class, just like appreciated what we had at least, just to have that for the least. And I know that we had a really successful conference meet actually that year. It was like kind of a shock how well everyone was performing under those kind of like, minimal circumstances, and quick turnaround. So, all things considered, it was super unfortunate, for me on a personal kind of like selfish level. Yeah, I was just kind of upset, but yeah, that's kind of how I handled it. I just channeled my energy towards coaching, towards what I could do outside of it, and writing and just being involved in athletics,
being in the world
in general. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so that was kind of my story on that end.
Did your knee ever get better? Did you find the knee over toes guy?
I did find the knees over toes guy. I found
Oh,
him
no way.
among many other people. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Follow Ben Patrick on Instagram. I'm a huge fan of everything he does, but unfortunately the knees over toes didn't work for me. It was just bigger than that. And to answer your question, yes. And I only found my answer as recent as this July, crazy enough. So I had been dealing with this injury for pretty much over 3 years. And yeah, it ended up just being a meniscus repair that I ended up needing. So it was a meniscus injury, just a really unusual injury that doctors, sport orthopedics don't see a lot. But yeah, it was just a detachment from sort of the capsule in my medial meniscus. So it was like really loose and just like basically the reason why my meniscus was, the knee pain was only getting worse. It made sense because it was just getting more and more disrupted as I was moving and walking. So yeah, so luckily I was able to salvage it. And I'm still kind of rehabbing now. Actually, it's a 3 to 6 month recovery. So it does take time, but yeah, thanks for asking. I was able to find it. It's amazing to not have pain there anymore. And, I do have hopes of like getting back into swimming soon. And like, I don't know, in the back of my mind, I do have like the goal of just like seeing what I can do again and trying to sort of like, make up for lost time there. So, so it's exciting. It's really exciting, but thank you for asking. Yeah.
All right. Now I have to answer the question, right? It's my turn.
So we'll flip it back on you. Yep.
Not going to forget about me. So COVID, I didn't really focus on swimming that much, honestly. We had practices still. They ran like 6 practices a day that were all like 50 minutes long because you could only have 8 people in the pool at once, or maybe 16, one of each end. I don't know, whatever the rule was. So I wasn't really doing much in the water. I rounded out a little bit in the face and the other places. It was just a time of change, and I spent a lot of my time. Luckily, I was in a quad with 3 of my classmates, the guys in my class on the team, and so we had a good time in there, playing, whatever Xbox game we had, or watching. We got into fantasy football, not betting, obviously, against NCAA policy, but we played. And so, we watched the games every week. It was a lot more of like I got closer to like those 3 guys. And so that was what it was. Cause you can't go out and hang out with everybody. Yeah. Yep. You're all segmented. And I spent a lot of my time. I remember we got meals from the dining hall in the cardboard boxes, and we had to bring them back to our rooms to eat. I hated that, by the way. That was horrible. Probably the worst part of it. You had to go like in a buffet line, tell the people what you want.
Oh God. Yeah. Don't miss that time.
Sorry to bring it up. But anyway, I remember I would come back to my room and I would watch videos, or I would read an article about leadership because I was a sophomore at that time. And I'm like, theoretically, if I'm going to become, a junior and senior, looking towards captainship, I want to learn how to build a really good team. I want to learn how to be the best leader I can be. So I looked at, I listened to Navy SEAL people. I listened to management consultants for corporate people. I listened to, the best athletic teams leadership. I've watched the mic'd up Super Bowl of Patriots versus Falcons, whatever number that is. I watched that like 5 times because it's just so like, that's a team right there. And it's the team that you could watch. Edelman and Brady just hyping people up. Yep. And that's what it is. So I just learned a lot of things about how to be a good leader, because I always thought, it's like an innate thing that's, you're born with it or you're not born with it, but it's a skill. There's techniques, there's qualities that you can learn to implement. And I'm like a super introvert. And so it never really came naturally to me until I learned how to put all this stuff into practice. And luckily I had a really good setting to do it in. The swim team, it was kind of fragmented by COVID, right? And having that job of, okay, let's bring the culture back. Let's bring everybody together. Never about like, it's not a position of power. It's a position of responsibility, right? It's not that, oh, now I'm in charge, so I get to tell people what to do. It's, oh, now people are looking up to me, so I have to make sure that I'm on my game so that I can make this team the best it can be. That's the mindset shift. Because no one wants a boss that just like sits back and tells you what to do. That's not a leader. That's a boss, right? So, a leader, you obviously have to lead by example. You have to take as much responsibility as you can. If anything goes right, it's because of the team. If anything goes wrong, it's because of your failure as a leader. So that's the thing you have to take on. You have to be prepared for that. So there's just the maximum amount of responsibility you can take, that sort of thing, and leading by example. I mean, there's a ton of other things too, but that's what I was focusing on in COVID. I would sit down with my cardboard box meal, and I would watch videos, and I would, read articles and stuff like that. Just trying to, I couldn't make my technique any better. I couldn't make my races any better. Right. So I tried to make my me better. Everything else.
Yeah. Right. Kind of working on just learning, I'm going to be in this position where I'm going to be a leader for this Bates team. And how can I draw, sort of insight and inspiration from elsewhere, regardless of what realm it's in, capacity it's in. So I can start to really think about this and how I could just use this for this team. That's really cool. Was there any one, I know you mentioned listening to the audio from sort of Brady and Edelman and in that Super Bowl winning Patriots team as sort of inspiration for you, but was there any one person or thing that really sticks out as something that you really kind of attached to, wow, that's really profound, or that's something that I really could use? Was there any one thing that sticks out, or was it just really a culmination of a lot of different readings and different people?
A lot of it was a culmination, but there's a couple things I can think of. One was I don't know if you've heard of Jocko Willink or whatever.
Jocko Willink. Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah. That guy with the black and white podcast. Yeah. So he's like a hardcore military guy. I don't know if
he's a former Navy SEAL, and someone who now uses his platform to basically just share kind of that motivational speaking and mental and also physical side of how to kind of just be your best self.
He was the one that really hammered it home for me about responsibility. You as the leader have to take responsibility. You have to be prepared to handle all the. You can't give the flack to anybody else. You can't pass the blame. You can't, if someone on your team does something stupid, you can't just say, "Oh, it was them." It's because it's you. You have to take that, and you have to. Anything that goes right, it's because of the team. It's not because of you. So that was something that really hit home for me in that respect. And then the other one I can think of just off the top of my head, there's a guy named Simon Sinek, who's more in the corporate world, the corporate management businesses world.
Yep.
And he's one thing he said is that leaders eat last. And so it's the idea of in The Lion King, Mufasa, the good king, right?
Yep.
You let everybody else in Pride Rock eat before the lions would take their share, because he knew that the lions were the ones that were going to be capable of wiping out the whole thing if they went first. Mm-hmm. So they sat back and let the balance sustain itself. And then as soon as Scar got in charge, he was like, we're the kings. We eat first. And then everything was decimated. And so it's take care of everybody else Don't give yourself extra benefits. Don't give yourself, because you're the one who has the power. So where you're going to use that power to give yourself all the things, right? Use your power, your influence to give everything to everybody else. And then what they're going to give you back is effort and respect and a willingness to have your back because you've shown that you have theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's really good. It's like that. Yeah. Are you going to use this to be selfish or selfless, right? Like, are you going to use it for, your own kind of like selfish, needs and sort of the power control of being in a leadership position? Or are you going to use this selflessly and sort of just spread the wealth to everyone else on the team and everyone else in your community, and then be able to, just like support each other, have each other's backs, and and be someone who leads by example and someone that people can look up to rather than like fear or, sort of question, the reasoning behind their authority in that position. Right. So that's I think that's great. And so, when you were at Bates, obviously, kind of moving past that freshman year and just within the remainder of your career, I mean, you had tremendous success. I was just doing some research yesterday. Obviously, I got to watch you, live at NESCAC championships and at NCAAs. And like, I was just blown away. I mean, as a fellow backstroker, I remember watching you drop a 46.8 in the 100 back at finals and literally turning to my coach and just being like, how is this D3? What are we doing? 46.8. Like this would have won my conference championship, and I was just like, wow. And it was like just a beautiful swim. Obviously just like your length as a swimmer kind of speaks for itself, but then, just your movement in the water. I remember just being like absolutely like blown away. And certainly your, NCAA record setting 50 back at the time going 21-1. I think that was also incredibly special to watch. And you just, I think, carry yourself, everything you're saying, I can see because I've seen you on the pool deck. And I remember watching you because I would kind of look at some of the, just more serious swimmers behind the deck. And I like just observing kind of how they prepare and stuff like that. So it seemed like you had it figured out. You were dialed in. So circling back, you had tremendous success, right? Like you go from a 20.2 50 freestyle in high school, and then you finish your career in a 19.7 at NCAAs, and being, I believe, a runner-up finisher there in that A final. Your 100 back, you go from 49 to a 46. Your 100 free, you go from 46 to a 44-1. And you just have, these great markers of improvement at Bates and great success. I mean, NESCAC championships your senior year, you're, a 2-time NESCAC individual champion, and then a runner-up in the 50 free. Your relays are performing out of this world. And then you go to NCAAs and you're just a top 8 finisher in all 3 individual events. And again, your team relays are just performing out of this world. So just like what worked so well for you within the Bates Swim and Dive program, and ultimately, like, how did it just all come together for senior year? Like, what do you attribute that to? Was there anything you can just like point to and be like, this was it? And it could be a culmination of everything we've talked about, but I'm just curious as to like what really worked for you.
What Peter said when he was trying to recruit me my junior year of high school, he said, because I was going around asking every coach at every team that I recruited that I was looking at, I said, it was a selfish question, but I wanted to see what they would say. I said, I'm really serious about swimming. How is this team going to make me personally better? I asked that to everybody. And most of them gave, oh, well, we do this. Oh, we have this training trip. Oh, we have this great set that everyone likes. They gave the standard answer that you're expecting. Right. Peter said, we're not. Wherever you go, I don't care if you go here or if you go somewhere else, if you feel that somewhere else is better. wherever you go, they're not going to make you better, and we're not going to make you better. You're going to make you better. It's going to be up to you. In whatever setting you're in, it's going to be up to you to put it into practice, to internalize it, to do your own work. Because wherever you go, there's going to be 60 kids and 2 coaches, roughly. So you're not going to have a one-on-one coach. It's going to be up to you. And so to some extent, it definitely was like we did awesome sets. We did more yards. I got more of that base. I got more used to getting hammered over and over again. Training trip was awesome. So yes, absolutely, all of that stuff is true. I think what really like made it happen was, in one part, the team, having a really, really supportive team around me, because I've seen teams and I've been on teams where it wasn't like mine. So I know that they exist and that it's bad. So I really count myself lucky to be on a team that was so supportive and so and had my back so much.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the 100 back, if you look at the end of the lane at Wesleyan, almost none of the other lanes have people, like maybe 1 or 2 people. All 24 other people on the Bates team are behind my lane.
The block. Wow.
It's just insane. Yep. That contrast. But anyway, it was that, and just my own attention to detail, and I'm super competitive. I don't know if you noticed this. I really I talk about lift up your team, be a good sportsman, be a good ambassador for your sport, and all that stuff is true. At the same time, I want to win.
Yeah,
I really want to win.
Yep.
So
100%.
I'm I don't know if you know anybody else who's read through the rule book. I read the rule book. Wow. I was looking. This is what I would do at night. I read through the rule book, trying to find are there any advantages that I can gain that people might not know about, because no one's reading this thing except the officials, that are legal, that I can do. I went through frame by frame. I watched Caleb Dressel's 17.63 and my 20.02 from junior year nationals. And I was like, okay, on what frame is he, on what frame am I losing ground? Right? Because it's not about who goes the fastest, it's about who slows down the least. Where am I slowing down the most? In what frame? It's actually not his first breakout stroke that's really important. It's his second one. That's where he gains the speed, not the first one. So maybe I should. So I actually switched. I broke out with a different arm because I knew that my right arm was more powerful. So I was like, oh, the powerful stroke should be first because I have to carry the speed. But no, the first stroke is just get it behind you. The second stroke is the powerful one. So I switched arms that I was breaking out 2 weeks before NCAAs.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff where I'm just so nitpicky. So even to the point where in backstroke, when I get, you jump in the water, right?
Yep.
I would take my time a lot more than other people because people in the heat are man, I got to jump in. I got to get ready so they don't start the race without me. So they get there, they get all tensed up to get ready. I jump in. I always pull my cap out to make sure that there's no water in it so I can hear the starter. Never an issue. Jiggle my legs a little bit. Get my hands, get exactly the right fingertip placement. Okay. Deep breath, and I'm ready. And everyone else has been sitting there for 10 seconds.
All tense. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they say, take your mark. And as soon as they say, take, everyone knows what's coming. So they go, take your mark. They're holding it for 2.5 seconds. I wait until they finish saying mark.
And then you're
take
already.
Mark. So I'm that's an isometric hold that's really actually takes a lot of strength. And so that's it makes a serious difference in a 50 back if you're holding it for 2.5 seconds or if you're holding it for half a second.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff that you have to show up every day.
Mm.
You have to show up every day. It's necessary, but it's not enough. It's not sufficient if you want to, get ahead of the people who are showing up every day. You have to do things that other people aren't doing. So I would always, that was my secret. My secret power was very in-depth analysis and really overthinking everything. It was a curse too, because I get super like anxious, and I messed up my 100 back at NCAAs because I was too busy thinking about, am I going to be the first champion the Bates has ever had? But if I just swam my race, I would have gone faster. I would have been faster if I didn't try to win.
Right.
So it's a benefit and a curse. But I think that is, and it fit into Bates really well, is the thing. Like, I don't think I could have done what I did anywhere else, because one of the things that really attracted me in recruiting is they give you your notebook, your folder, whatever. And one of the things was the average time drops from freshman year to senior year at Bates, like 2.5 seconds, like 3 seconds in 100. Wow. So it's like, you're not just going to come in here and you go 49 and a 20.2. Hey, that's good enough for us. Just do that. You'll have you might get a record or something.
Right.
No, we want to make you better, and people have gotten a lot better over time here. And that's what kind of sold me, because I was like, yeah, I don't want to stay where I am. I want to get better every year. And it was a place that really allowed me to do that, and really allowed me to grow and supported me along the way.
Would you say that you can attribute, because you talked about just like, the importance of like the backstroke start being an isometric hold, and like kind of having, the awareness to be like attuned to, the strength component of, your just like something as simple as a start. I mean, I remember seeing something where it's like, if you think about a backstroke start, it's the most, if not one of the most athletic movements that we do in swimming. Right. And so would you attribute sort of your heightened success coming to Bates to any strength and conditioning that you did? Or was there anything within, your weight routine at Bates, or just maybe it was like resistance training that you guys did? Was there anything that you felt like got your body to that next level? Like that kind of like, just next step in progression, aside from your body just, kind of getting used to the additional training and whatnot, and you just grow into your body as you kind of, go through those college years. But was there anything that you can point to as like a game changer?
Yeah. So I've always been pretty like, I wouldn't say strong, but like athletic. So the backstroke start was something that I was able to do when I was, 12, 13, decently well. And I just got better and better at it. I love starts and turns because they're like explosive. I got a lot of fast twitch fibers. So I love the explosive stuff. I think the thing that I like the most, so in the weight room, we did a couple things I really liked. I really liked leg extensions, because they're like dolphin kicks almost. They really like, work the quads. And we would also do straight arm pull downs. So you would be all the way like this and just keep your arms straight. And it would work the exact, turn the wrong way. The exact like lats. Pulling muscle. Yeah, like the upper lat, right where you get it. Those were a couple of weight room things I really liked. In the pool, I think my favorite thing that really like helped me get better the most was the mornings. Because the mornings we did power. And so you would either grab a tether or a power tower. Tether masterclass. Way superior because it pulls you back. Love it. And
wait, so what's the tether masterclass?
The tether is way better than the power tower, in my opinion. It's like the stretch cord.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you put it around your weights, and it like you swim against the resistance, and then you let go.
You're swimming against.
Yeah.
Right. And you try and make it down the whole pool if you can, but obviously each resistance cord is going to have a little bit more tension. So yeah,
exactly. Right.
no,
Right.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So we do those in the morning, and I grabbed the resistance cord whenever I could. And we would do, so it wasn't for a distance, but it was for a number of strokes. We would do 6 cycles. So for me, freestyle and backstroke, 12 strokes. And you just had to hit tempo. It wasn't about how much you're pulling. It's just hit your championship meet tempo in your 50 free or 50 back. So I would have to hit, 44, 45, 46. I forget what it was. I think 46 actually. In free and 52 in backstroke. And at the end of those, we did like eight rounds of those. And then we would get up on the blocks and we would do 625s on a minute at 100 pace. And you'd take like the first 4 and add them up to get your 100 time. And that was so good for my confidence because they're on a minute. So it's not realistic. It's not like you're actually going to be able to go this time.
Right.
And I think Vanessa, I don't know if she might have been a little bit fast on the watch some days. But it was such a confidence booster because it's like I was able to go off the blocks and just like get so much rest. And so I would add up like a 41.2, 40.9, just like something that's just absolutely no way I could ever do that.
Bonkers.
But I do swimming first, and then I go to the weight room. I'd like go into the weight room all hyped up. I'm going 40.9 this year. Watch it. Like, no, you're not. But that was a really fun set because it's like this is what 100 pace is. 100 pace, you're not holding back. You're going the same speed. You're just breathing more. And so that really trained me to like go out faster in the hundreds and be able to hold on longer because we did 6. We didn't just do 4. So that was one of the things that like specifically was 100 pace that I think I got better at hundreds because of that. So that was like a physical thing and a mental thing. But yeah, that was a physical thing that really helped me. Yeah.
Yeah. I love anytime we did resistance training in, my college program. I loved it. Anytime we could get shoots, the bands like you, or the cords, like you just said, what are the tether masters? That's a name. Just like the power towers. Oh my God. Just like, especially for sprinters, I know that they love that. But I certainly did too. I just like it because it just is like, Peter would always call them like toys when it came to equipment. He's like, yeah, just give them, well, this will be our toy for today or whatever, because like, it is nice to just break up, like, just swimming, with your body through the water, which obviously is what we're doing at the end of the day, but like using fins or different pieces of equipment, to just mix up the training. I think just as much as it is helpful in the water, it's also mental. Like, it's just like you said, like, just giving you a different look and a different feel. And that those mornings sound like they were a difference maker for sure. Cause like you said, getting that confidence, regardless of if it was really realistic or not, I think that it's something to be said about being able to prove to yourself that you can go that fast that morning, in season, and then go and do a killer weight training session. That all that stuff matters. So, that's really cool. I wanted to ask, favorite, like looking back at the Bates 4 years, what are some of your favorite memories from your time as a Bates swimmer?
One of them was my freshman year and the other was my senior year. Freshman year was the CBB championships, which is so in the past, this all happened before this year actually. In the past, what we would do is Colby, Bates, and Bowdoin, that's CBB, would all do a series of dual meets against each other. So Bates v. Colby, Bates v. Bowdoin, Colby v. Bowdoin. And if one of those teams beat both of the other two, they were CBB champions. And we hadn't when I was a freshman, we hadn't gotten that in 4 or 5 years. And it was came down to the last relay against Colby. We just barely beat Bowdoin, and it came down to the last relay against Colby. And I remember each second of it because I watched the video so many times. We dove in, and for the first 25, we were neck and neck. And then a little bit behind, the Colby guy got a great turn, a little bit behind. And then coach put me second. And that was kind of nice because nobody else puts like their guy second. So you get a little bit of a break in the water. So that our guy who dove in third had a little bit of open water. And then our fourth guy, we had to switch out because the guy who was going to be our fourth guy, we had to sub him in for the 2IM, and which was right before the last relay. So he wasn't going to do the 50. And so we had a different guy who's a senior anchoring the relay. And he dove in just a little bit behind and then caught up just slowly. It was like a Jason Lezak moment. Caught up just enough, not quite as impressive as Jason Lezak, sorry, but caught up and just out-touched him by like a few tenths. And we all went crazy because we had already beat Bowdoin. So it was that relay was like the culmination of like two meets and something that we hadn't gotten in quite a few years. So all the seniors were like going crazy. Matt Charest was the senior my freshman year, and I could see him on the video in the back hugging his co-captain. He like got a big like giant hug and like yeah, so that was nice. That was nice because even though I didn't have the history, I knew it, and so it was fun to be a part of that and put that nail in the coffin. Senior year, I guess, was just NESCACs. I don't really have to say too much about it. I've already said a lot about it. It was just the atmosphere was crazy. So supportive, so exciting. There were so many fun things to look forward to. Not just that I was doing, but what other people were doing, what Mark Gregory's doing, what Max Corey's doing, what Marge is doing, what, all these seniors getting their last swims in. Some of the seniors going to NCAAs, qualifying all the relays. Yeah. Oh, it was special. It was special. Yeah.
Just like a magical meet, really, like
nothing like it.
Nothing like it. No, I often think back to that meet, especially when I'm in conversations like these with, athletes or coaches that are part of the NESCAC, because I've said this before. I mean, I was not, actively participating swimming in that meet, but just being on the pool deck, like at, a meet that as for Wesleyan, like we were able to host. And so, just knowing everything that went into hosting that meet and then being there on the pool deck and seeing, some of the best athletes in Division III, and also just, the uniqueness and just like energy of the NESCAC conference. Like it was just the coolest meet. Like it was like just a 10 out of 10, electric, exciting, record breaking, everything that you could ask for type of meet. Yeah, it's one that will stick forever for sure. So that's great. And then, we'll wrap up here. Last few questions. But I just wanted to ask, like, what has the sport of swimming really like meant to you? Like what tools or lessons like just has swimming provided for you?
Yeah, that's a big thing about D3, right? Is that it's not just swimming. It's how does swimming make you better as a person? Like how do you come out of it a better person? So yeah, it's a lot of those things, like, everyone says, obviously, like the being able to set long-term goals and work towards them consistently, like that sort of thing. Yes, like time management, all this stuff. I think for me, my biggest takeaway was like learning how to perform really well. Like I had kind of said at the beginning, like learning how to handle that pressure and work towards something and really like make it count in the moment that it needs to. And just wanting to do things well. learning how to analyze something and work so closely on it to make it as perfect as it can be and just make a really good product, especially when it has your name attached to it. So like this is kind of the cool thing about devoting yourself so much to swimming is a lot of people might think you focus yourself so much on this tiny narrow thing called swimming and you ignore everything else. And so you only get your skill set in this small thing. But what actually happens is you learn so much about that thing in that context that all of the ideas become applicable to everything else. It like widens back up and it makes you better at everything else because you focus so much on this thing and really cared about it. That's another thing. Like it taught me how to care about things and actually admit to myself, yeah, I care what the outcome of this is. It can be scary because you're like, if it doesn't go well, I want to act like I just didn't care. But having the courage to take the leap and say, yeah, I care about this. And if it goes poorly, it's probably going to hurt. It's probably going to suck, but I'm going to be able to get through it. But it's not just apathy. It's not just, let's see what happens. It's, I care about this and I want it to be good and I want to do it well. And that sort of emotional investment in things that's sort of carried over into other things too. Work projects and my thesis and relationships and things like that. I put in more effort because I learned how to care. I learned what the effect is if you care about something and you put the work in and it becomes great, how inspiring that can be for other people too, and how good it can feel and all of the positive results that come along with that is, I think, a really valuable lesson that I've learned.
Yeah, I love that. I say it over and over and over and over again, but swimming at the end of the day is a metaphor for life, right? Like it's such a metaphor for life. I think, like you said, just the time, the commitment, the attention to detail that certainly you put into it. I know I put into it, and continue to put into it to a degree. Like it just opens your mind to give that maybe same level of attention and care in other areas of your life and other aspects of your life, and it's such a transferable skill, honestly. And it's just a remarkable thing, and I really like the way you put that. I'm gonna look back at that and listening to it because that was really cool.
Thank you.
And yeah, for sure. No, it's good. And then yeah, like how has just the post college life transition, kind of like been for you? Just sort of the real life world now, and what are you doing for work? Are you still swimming in some capacity? Just sort of where are you at in your life now, would you say?
Yeah, it's less exciting now than it was in college.
Yeah.
A lot more fun.
Often the case.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got a job in data analytics. My employer is not going to watch this, so I'll say what I really want to kind of get into is like leadership coaching and that sort of thing. Like especially for businesses, there's a field of psychology. I majored in psychology, and there's a field of psychology called industrial organizational psychology. And it's the study of like how to make people work well in a workplace together. How do you create effective leadership? How do you create a good culture so that people actually want to come to work and they don't hate their job and they don't just do it because they want the money. They do it because they love it. Better work, better people, better environment, more productive qualities. That's sort of the things that like interest me. Is like I love tinkering with things and optimizing things, but I'm most interested in people. And so optimizing people and optimizing teams is something that's just really interesting to me. So hopefully, first year, you're not going to do your dream job first year, but that's sort of my, in the back of my mind, like that's where I'm headed, I think.
Yeah. It sounds very transferable from, your leadership position at Bates, and then like you said, majoring in psychology. I mean, from the sounds of it, that sounds like something that could be really applicable for you. So that's really cool. And then as far as swimming, like, are you swimming in any capacity now, or were you like, you know what, I need a break? Like, because I know a lot of college swimmers, once they're done, it's like, okay, I'm good for at least, a couple years or whatever it is,
Yeah, I'm not swimming as much as I was. I'm getting in every once in a while. I'm doing actually like a little bit of coaching in the morning, and I may be doing an assistant coaching for my old high school team. So I'm like still in the world a little bit, but I'm definitely not training. Right. I knew that my fourth year was going to be my last year. I wasn't going to do a fifth year or anything like that, because I needed it to end and to know that this is the ending point. And I didn't want to be the guy who's like clutching at straws, trying to grasp and claw his way to another 1/10 of a second. It's like, it ended good, and it ended. So, maybe masters down the line or something, just to sort of stay in shape and feel the feeling again. But I'm like, I'm happy with where I got to, being where I got to. I don't need to go further than that.
Yeah. And it's great. It's great to have, the awareness to kind of know that and call it where it is. And, but Coach Vanessa did want to ask why you didn't decide to do a fifth year at Wesleyan.
Yeah, I mean, that's a reason. Wanted to move on. It felt like a betrayal to my former self, because I spent all 4 years. Okay, 2023 is going to be the last year, and especially my senior year. It's like, this is the last one. And so all the training that I was doing, all my mental, things that was going on in my head, was like, this is going to be the end. This is going to be the last one.
It's the end game. Yeah.
No matter what happens, there's always going to be something that I can improve. Obviously, my 100 back at NCAA's, I know I could have gone faster if I did a couple things differently. My 50 free at finals, I put on a freaking tech suit that was new. I hadn't tried on before. I knew it was going to fit because it was the same size, but I wore out my forearms putting the tech suit on.
Putting it on.
I couldn't get in streamline off the blocks. So it's like, there's things that could have gone better. There's things that I could optimize, but that's going to happen no matter if I did another year. That was still going to be the case. And so I was like, I'm happy with ending it where I told myself I was going to end it. And like I said, not trying to claw for another 1/10 of a second. Just it ended like Tom Brady. He won the Super Bowl with the Bucs. He should have retired. He played another year and like did bad. So I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, no, you're ending it on a high note, and that's how you should end it. And I think that's it's definitely good. Well, good. And then final question: are you a fan of get out swims? And do you have a favorite get out swim that sticks out from your time at Bates or in club swimming or just in general?
Oh yes, the name of the podcast. I had to be prepared, right? So yes, I love get out swims. I can't do them. I suck at them because I can only approach my best times with taper and a suit and a shave. But I love them, and so does Peter. We don't do them very often, but he loves throwing it in. He loves people getting excited. So this year, my senior year, last year I guess, training trip, and it was day 8 of 10. And we had not had a day off, and everyone was broken down, especially me. And we were doing some horrible set, some stupid set that was like just 50s and 75. I don't even remember what it was, but it was just not a lot of rest, just over and over and over, like 40 of them. And it was New Year's Day, and it was hot. It was in Florida. It was hot. A lot of people's horror stories from training trip are when it's cold. It was hot.
It was hot,
and it was like a noon practice, so it was bad. So about halfway through, he announces, "All right, get out swim opportunity." But here's how it works: we're going to split into genders. We're going to have the men on this side of the pool, the women on this side of the pool. Half of your gender has to go within a second and a half of their best 100 time. And then your gender gets to go home. So if half the women made it, but half the men didn't, the women went home, the men got back in. And we would have gotten back in too. Like, he's serious about that.
Yeah.
So we had 22 guys. So 11 of them had to make it. And as we're going through, about half the people are making it, as we were going. I didn't make it. I wasn't close. No shot. I knew it. But I tried anyway. I don't know what my time was. It was bad. We had people like heat stroke, sunstroke. We had the lifeguard over. She was giving water to people. She was giving sugar to people. Like, we had cramps. We had old injuries, hip injuries, shoulder injuries, everything just popping up. Just bad day. Because again, day 8 of 10 in a row, doubles, like super hot. So about half the people were making it. And the last 2 guys get up, and 10 people had made it. So one of these 2 has to make it. And the women have just finished and they made it. So if one of these 2 guys doesn't make it, we get back in. Through everything that we've been through and this entire process, if one of these 2 guys doesn't make it, we get back in. One of them, they dove in at the same time. One of them, we knew from the moment he dove in, we're like, no, that's not going to happen. Tough day, whatever. Not cheering for him. Well, cheering for him, obviously, but like, you know what I'm saying. The other guy, we were like, all right, close. He told us the time he had to go. And so we're kind of watching the splits. We're trying to get the pace clock. We're trying to see, like, is he on time? We're going crazy. Everyone's, he's at the 50. We're all going nuts trying to get this guy. Just go fast. Just please. He touches the wall. And coach is on the other side of the freaking pool, stops the stopwatch, and we're like, because he wanted to leave us in suspense, so he walks all the way around the pool before telling us if he made it or not. We're like sitting there, did I make it? We don't know. Comes over, shows him the stopwatch, and then he like slaps the water and goes crazy, and then he shows us the stopwatch, and he made it by 2.
Wow.
And then we all went home and we got the afternoon off, which was a nice New Year's Day present. Yeah.
Nothing like the Florida training trip. Get out swim. Just hitting at the right time. Like, that's awesome. That's a great one. I just pictured it right there. Just, the suspense created by Peter, and then coming over, and then the excitement just rolling out, and that's awesome. That's why we love get out swims, and that's a hard one. That's a true challenge. So that's really cool. Well, good. Well, Nate, I've really enjoyed this time this morning and in our conversation, and I just wanted to see if there was anything else you'd like to add before we conclude this. But other than that, this has been truly informational, fun. It's my first time ever talking to you. Obviously, I've seen you on the pool deck, but I think I've just learned a lot here, and it's fun talking to a fellow swimmer, or only 2 years younger than I am. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Very, very happy that you're doing this. Like I said, I don't know anybody else who's doing something like this for Division III and for NESCAC specifically. So it's really, really awesome to get to talk to you and spill some of my things that I had in my head for so long. Be able to just share them and to get some feedback and get some little insight about what it was like to be you too. For sure. So keep doing it, and very honored to be here and much appreciated. Definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you. And that about wraps us up. Thank you.